Hey guys, Mike here, and in this video we're having side by side two of the slickest compact tablets of the moment, the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 7.0 and the Apple iPad mini. The Samsung is much cheaper than its rival here, so tag along and you'll find out if the mini can justify the higher price tag. From starters, you'll notice that the iPad mini, like all the other iPads actually, bundles a 4:3 screen, which makes it comfortable to use in portrait mode, but at the same time makes it wider than the Tab. The Galaxy is a more compact device, with a 16:10 display, better suited for watching movies. At the end of the day though, you can use both tablets for pretty much anything you might want to, and you're probably going to be fine with either formats. However, you should know that since the Galaxy Tab is a smaller device, that makes it more comfortable to grab with only one hand and use with the other. You can grab the mini as well, even I can do it and I don't have very large hands. But it's a bit awkward and not as natural as with the Tab. The Samsung Slate is grippier too, but when it comes to the overall feel, most of you will probably like the iPad mini more. In fact, you have to choose between the glossy plastic case on the Tab and the matte aluminum one on the mini. All the pieces are smoothly bound together on both of these, and there are no loose parts, uneven joints or anything like this. Anyway, I for one have a hard time picking one side over the other, as each has its pros and cons. The glossy plastic is going to scratch in time for sure, but the aluminum is not a stranger for scratches and dents either. At the end of the day though, I keep both these tablets wrapped in protective covers, which makes the whole plastic versus metal debate obsolete. Those aside, let's turn our attention on some practical aspects. For instance, both slates feature a handful of ports and knobs, including a power button, a volume rocker, a microphone and a standard 3.5mm headphone jack. A set of speakers is placed on the bottom lip on the two tablets, flanking the lightning port on the iPad and the standard microUSB port on the Galaxy. But there are some differences between the two. There's a microSD card reader on the Samsung Slate and a secondary noise-cancelling microphone, while on the iPad you're getting a screen rotation lock switch. The front faces are mostly dominated by screens. You'll notice a much slimmer bezel on the iPad mini, and that's certainly cool, especially since you can actually touch the screen while holding the tablet, and that won't affect your experience, as you can still select and tap things on the device with the other hand. That's not the case on the Galaxy. And while we're talking about the front faces, you should know that both these devices offer a front-facing camera and the light sensor on top of the displays, but things are different towards the bottom. Down here you'll find the classic Apple home button on the iPad and a set of controls borrowed from the Galaxy smartphones on the Galaxy Tab, with a physical home button flanked by capacitive back and menu keys. Anyway, let's talk about the screens. Both offer vibrant and quite natural looking colors and deep blacks. The iPad tends to slightly outmatch the Galaxy when it comes to screen brightness and viewing angles, and also paints much cleaner whites, but overall there's little you might not like about them, with one exception: the subpar pixel density. On the Galaxy there's a 7-inch 1024x600 pixel TFT panel, while on the iPad there's a 7.9-inch 1024x764 pixel IPS one. In practice, that translates into fuzzy details and pixelated edges and fonts, as you can see for yourselves here. And that's annoying, especially if you're already used to a higher density screen from your other devices like I am. But let's go ahead and power on these two slates. Both are motorized by some mid-range hardware platforms with dual-core processor. On paper, the Galaxy Tab has an edge over its rival, especially since it bundles twice the amount of memory, 1GB versus 512MB. And that's shown by benchmark results as well, if that's something you care about. In practice though, things aren't exactly so. And here's where the Android versus iOS debate begins. I'm not getting in depth here, there are plenty of other videos telling you all there is to know about these two. I will however mention that I'm running Android 4.1.2 on the Galaxy Tab and iOS 6.0.1 on the iPad mini. In the future, those will be updated and things might change. For the time being though, Android is the more customizable environment here, and Samsung adds their TouchWiz UI on top with a bunch of extra tweaks. Some of you might not like TouchWiz, but I for one am fine with it and even enjoy some of the extras it provides, like the customizable home screens, the notification tray and the multitasking pane. iOS on the other hand is much simpler, even boring by some standards, at least till the 7th version of the operating system lands in officially. But it tends to handle everyday activities smoother and launch apps somewhat faster, although I must admit the Galaxy Tab is quite snappy as well, see for yourselves. At the end of the day, you can run all sorts of apps on these two and use them for all sorts of tasks, from browsing to listening to music, watching videos and playing games. Each has its pros and cons. For instance, complex games look much better on the iPad mini, including things like GTA Vice City I'm showcasing here, and tend to run smoother as well. The Galaxy on the other hand supports many more types of video files by default, including 1080p MKVs. And it's a lot more easier to get your content on it, as you don't have to rely on things like iTunes. Still, what really sets these two apart is the ecosystem's strength. There are plenty of third-party apps in both stores, but when it comes to well-designed and high-quality applications specifically created for tablets, the App Store is still superior to Google's Play. At least that's how I see things. I wonder what do you guys think, so go ahead and leave your replies below. Alright, and there are a couple of other things I should tell you about these two tablets. They both feature a set of cameras, with some front-facing shooters capable of taking 720p videos, and some main shooters on the back as well. Nothing fancy, but enough to do the job if really needed, as long as you're taking stills and videos in good light. The iPad does have a high resolution sensor, can take 1080p clips and is overall the better performer here. The tab tries to compensate with a much more complete camera interface, with shooting modes and tweaks, but I for one don't care much about that, I care about results. Connectivity-wise, the two are fairly close. They offer wireless and Bluetooth, and there are 4G LTE cellular versions available for both of them. However, the tab also offers support for voice services, while the Mini does not. Oh, and it's worth mentioning that I haven't encountered Wi-Fi issues with any of these two, although I've seen several buyers complaining about that on the Galaxy. Besides this, both slates offer a set of stereo speakers, like I mentioned before. Fairly loud and punchy, but nothing too fancy. Having them placed on the lower lip, however, is an inconvenience, as you'll easily cover them with your hand when using the tablets in landscape mode, while watching movies and especially while playing games. Last but not least, there's the battery life. The iPad mini packs a somewhat larger battery than the Galaxy Tab, and in practice, it tends to outlast its competitor by a fair amount. I usually get between 5 to 8 hours of life on the Tab, based on what I'm running on it, and between 7 to 12 hours of life on the Mini. Alright, time for some conclusions. At the end of the day, the iPad mini is the better device here. The sleeker looks, the slightly better screen, the smoother everyday experience and the superior cameras are just some of the things that set it apart from the Galaxy Tab. And the overall strength of the iOS ecosystem, of course, which for me is decisive, although some of you might not agree with me here, so I'll leave that for each of you to judge. But the Tab 3 7.0 is definitely not a bad slate. In fact, considering that it only starts at $199, even though that's only for the 8GB version, while the cheapest iPad mini sells for $329, for the money and for many of you it can well be the better pick. That if you're fine with the Android experience you're getting on tablets these days. In fact, the iPad mini is not the Tab's greatest rival. Devices like the Nexus 7 or the Asus MemoPad HD7 are, and we've compared this in some other videos, check them out on the channel. Bottom point though, it's up to you to decide if the iPad mini is the tablet to get, or you can settle for a Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 7.0 instead, while saving over $100. Both can handle well the basics, but the iPad has a couple of aces on its side. So what would you choose? The iPad mini or the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3? Or perhaps something else? Leave your comments below, I'm looking forward to reading them, and if you have any questions or requests, drop them below as well. Anyway, that's about it for now. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for my future updates. Catch you later.